welcome to Miniature Game Montage. Today we will visit the game that got me into miniature wargaming over a decade ago. Flames of War is a 15mm tabletop game set in World War II and will always have a special place in my heart. Today we will be playing a 100-point game using version 4 rules. This will be a standalone report, meaning that it's not part of a greater campaign. It's the Americans versus the Germans from their respective D-Day source books. I would like to give a shout out over to John at All Miniatures Great and Small. Your Flames of War content over the years has inspired me, and I hope your return is steadfast. To all of you out there, I hope you enjoy. Showing off the American forces, they will have an armored rifle platoon with 5 bazooka teams, 2 LMGs, and a mortar team. They will be carried in 3 M3 half-tracks with 30 cals and 2 M3 half-tracks with 50 cal machine guns. Next we have 3 M7 priests for artillery battery, and next to those we have 4 M10 tank destroyers. These were all painted in the same scheme within the last year. Next up, you're going to see some Shermans that were the first things that I ever laid paint on over a decade ago. You're going to have a lone Sherman observer tank. You're going to have a platoon of 5 Sherman 75s. Next up, you're going to have a platoon of 5 Sherman 76s, and there are 2 Firefly substitutes in there to round that platoon out. And then next up, we're going to have 2 Sherman 75s HQs. These are all veterans, and I'm a big fan of leaving things the way that I paint them, as it's kind of a look back at my journey in this hobby of, where I started to where I am now. So this is the Americans at 100 points. Next will be the German army played by my son today. He will have 6 Nebelwerfer batteries for artillery support, an armored Panzer Grenadier platoon riding in their Hanemags. He's got a Panzer III observation post, 2 88s, and then we're going to have a few Panzer IV platoons. They are in groups of 4. So we see the Hanemags there in the middle, and some more Panzer IVs here on the right, and they will be led by a Panzer IV Tank Company HQ. In total, 99 points for the German army. With deployment complete, the Germans have deployed their Nebelwerfers in the back. They are supported by a Panzer III observation unit. They also have a unit of Panzer IVs on the field, as well as their HQ. The other Panzers will be in reserve. A look at the Americans on the other side of the board. They have their M10 tank destroyer platoon out on the board, along with their half-tracks and infantry. They have the priest occupying the back between those hedges, and supported by their HQ Sherman unit. The M10 tank destroyer unit will be up first. They will move at tactical speed to get around this wall and try to lay down some fire on the Panzer unit that is in the trees. A note about this scenario is that the player that goes first, their units count as having moved. So we're going to go ahead and move them and see if we can get lucky with some shots. The half-tracks are going to move next, attempting a cross here order. That dice is rolled out and it is a fail, so we're going to roll these up individually. And on the cross checks, they need a 4 or better to cross. Each one of them fails except for one. The Sherman 75 HQ platoon will attempt a cross next, and the 2IC is successful. He will hop over the hedge and take a better position. The Sherman 75 will take its first shot, and it needs 8s to hit. And how you get an 8 in this game is you need to roll a 6 followed by another 6. So he's going to hit these guys on a 4. He is long range, taking that to a 5. They are concealed and gone to ground, so that's a +2, taking it to a 7. And the stabilizer special rule allows him to fire at his halted rate of fire, but it is a +1 penalty to hit. So those dice roll out, and both fail. The M10 tank destroyer platoon will lay down some fire on these Panzer IVs, hoping to get lucky with a 7. These guys are normally hit on 4s, long range 5. They are concealed and gone to ground, making it a 7. So it'll be 6s followed by 5s. Those roll out, and 1 does hit. An armor save is taken by the player. He does get +1 for being long range, and it is going to fail. He needed a 5. A firepower dice is rolled out needing a 3, and it is successful. 1 Panzer IV goes up in smoke. Lastly, since artillery can't fire, the Sherman observer will take a shot at the Panzer III and miss. Moving over to the German side, a blitz move was failed, so they are going to move up at tactical speed to the edge of the wood and attempt to fire back at the M10s. With the rest of the German army holding steady, an observer from the Panzer III tries to call in an artillery strike, but all 3 range-in attempts fail. The Panzer IV platoon will then line up some shots at the M10 platoon, needing 6s due to concealment and long range. All 3 shots miss. The HQ unit also draws line of sight to the M10 unit, needing 6s and misses. And at the end of turn 1, the Americans were able to take out a German Panzer IV with shots from the M10 platoon. They did move into better positions. Some of the American forces slowed down by the hedgerows as they tried to reposition for more advantageous later turns. The German player electing to more or less stay put, waiting for reinforcements to arrive in turn 3. The Americans will decide to reposition the M10 unit, moving 1 within close range of the Panzer IV HQ unit for their opponent. Another will move into firing range, but it will be long range. The other 2 will fall in line, but they will be unable to shoot this turn due to not having a firing lane. The half-tracks will again attempt to cross here, and this time it is successful. Those half-tracks are going to be hopping over the hedge and repositioning. The Sherman 75 HQ unit will roll out a cross-check and successfully maneuver over the hedge to take a better position. In the shooting step, the priests are going to attempt to range in on the Panzer III up on the hill. They're going to roll out to range in, which is successful on a 5. They then roll to hit and miss. The M10 unit will then take shots at the Panzer IV HQ unit. They do need a 5 for the short-range team and a 6 for the long-range team. Those are rolled out, and they actually get 2 hits. Those hits are assigned, and saves are rolled up, and on a 5, the long-range shot is equal to the anti-tank rating of the M10. The other one rolls up a 4, which is going to be less. A firepower dice is rolled out for the first, and nothing happens. A firepower is rolled for the second, and it will be bailed out. The 75mm Shermans will also take shots at that same platoon. They need 7s due to long-range cover and stabilizers. They actually managed to get 1 hit, rolling 2 6s back-to-back. A save roll is taken and failed. So another firepower dice rolling out, and this one is successful. And another Panzer IV goes up in smoke. We then go back over to the German player for the starting step. They successfully remount their tank, and they roll out a last stand check and pass. In the movement step, the Panzer IV unit will pass a blitz move, getting a free 4-inch move. They will reposition to get some shots on the M10s. In the shooting step, the Nebelwerfers attempt to range in on the M10s, and they do so successfully on the second attempt. It will get all 4 M10s under the bombard template, re-rolling misses. On the first one, we get a hit. The second is also a hit. The third rolls out a hit, as does the fourth. So all 4 of the M10 tank destroyers are hit by artillery. We then roll out armor saves. With an anti-tank of 2, the first one passes. The second one is also a pass. The third is equal to the anti-tank. And the last one is unsuccessful. With the firepower dice rolling out, needing 4 ups, the first one is a fail. The second one, however, is successful, and one M10 was taken out by artillery fire. The German commander also targets the M10s, needing 5s, and he gets a hit. He tries to assign it to a back tank, but a mistaken target rule reassigns to the front. The armor save does fail, and the firepower test is unsuccessful, so that front tank is bailed out. The other Panzer IV units will also take aim, firing with 2 of their tanks at halted rate of fire, missing all. The other Panzer IV shoots at the Sherman, missing both. Last in this step, the German commander attempts a shoot and scoot to reposition, but he fails. The Panzer IV unit also attempts a shoot and scoot and passes, and they will continue to move up the board and press the attack. With turn 2 concluded, both sides are being a little conservative, waiting for reinforcements to come onto the field in turn 3. 2 Panzer IVs have been eliminated for the Germans, and 1 American M10 is in flames. Both continue to move up the board, trying to take better positions for those objective pushes going into turn 3. The Americans start off turn 3 with a skill check to remount, and they do. No reserves are coming on the table, and now we'll see the M10s moving into close position against the Panzer IVs, ready to lay down additional fire. The Sherman 75 observer tank will move at tactical speed into position along the flank of the Panzer IVs. And a bit of change in strategy for the Americans. The half-tracks position and the men get out. They then crawl onto the German objective to get ready to hold, just in case reinforcements come in for the German side. In the shooting step, the M7 priests that are already ranged in repeat bombardment, and they are shooting at the Panzer III, and they get a hit. An armor save is rolled out, and it is going to equal the anti-tank. A firepower test will bail that tank out. The 75mm Sherman observer will take shots at the Panzer IV unit, needing 7s due to stabilizers, and both miss. The M10 tank destroyers shoot next, moving up close to the Panzer IV unit, and they just need 5s, rolling out 3 dice, and all miss. Next up, the Sherman HQ unit will split fire, first targeting the Panzer HQ unit, needing 7s due to range, concealment, and stabilizers. Both miss. The other Sherman 75 will attack the Panzer unit, needing the same, and also misses. So a valiant effort by the Americans fails with some poor shooting, and we now flip over to the German step, where they will not remount the bailed-out Panzer III tank, and also they roll for reserves, and no one coming in to help at this time. In the movement step, the Panzer IV unit will attempt to blitz move and pass. They will reposition and be able to shoot at their halted rate of fire due to this skill check. This concludes movement, as everyone else is staying put. In the shooting step, the Nebelwerfers are attempting to range back in again since the M10s moved. They fail on all 3 attempts, however. The Panzer IV unit will send over a volley of shots at their halted rate of fire at the M10s, needing 5s due to concealment. 2 hits will be assigned. Rolling these armor saves up, 1 equals the anti-tank rating. We're going to throw out a firepower dice, and that tank will be bailed out. We'll then move on to the other one, and this armor save will fail. Another firepower dice is rolled out, and we have an explosion. So it feels that the German player is starting to win the war of attrition against these M10s. The HQ unit will throw out 2 shots at its halted rate of fire and miss both times. We'll then attempt a shoot and scoot move, which succeeds, and this is the final resting place for those Panzer IVs backing up into the woods. A look at the battlefield as turn 3 is concluded. The Americans were able to bail out a Panzer III observer unit for the Germans. The Germans, however, their Panzer IV platoon was able to take out one of the M10 tank destroyer teams for the Americans. So certainly a lackluster turn for both sides. The Americans were able to get their infantry onto objectives, which are very tough to dig out, and we'll have to see what happens coming into turn 4 with potential reinforcements coming on the board for both sides. Tanks were remounted for the Americans, and with reserve rolls, a unit of Sherman 76s has come onto the board. They will be deploying on the side closer to the Germans, near the American objective. The Sherman 75 observation post joins the line. The half-tracks move behind the American lines to keep on the opposite side of the hedgerow, and a die was rolled out for the infantry to dig in. A skill check was successful, and the American infantry are now dug in with improved positions, waiting for the Germans to potentially come in. The Sherman 76s will unload a volley of shots on the Panzer IV platoon, needing 6s due to concealment and stabilizers. Rolling 2 dice each, they get 2 hits. Finding side armor on the Panzer IVs, we go straight to firepower, and 2 are destroyed. The Sherman 75 will also take shots and misses. The M10s will then fire at the Panzer HQ, needing 5s due to concealment. Roll those out, 2 shots each for halted rate of fire. 1 goes through, rolling up an armor save, which is failed, and then a firepower check is passed. Another explosion, another Panzer taken down. So a powerful turn for the Americans, as it feels like they have the Germans on their heels. We now flip over to the Germans, where they will remount a bailed-out Panzer III tank. They will also take a unit last stand test on the Panzer IV unit and pass. Reinforcements are then rolled up, and 1 unit will be coming in. The lone Panzer IV will attempt a blitz move and will succeed. He will reposition to lay down fire on the Sherman 76s. We're there now, so he's going to roll up 2 dice. He gets 1 hit, needing 4s. That is rolled up and saved by the 76's armor. The new Panzer IVs will shoot at the M10s with their 7.5 centimeter cannons, getting 3 hits going into the back of the M10s. These go straight to firepower. The first is bailed out, and the second is destroyed. German artillery then ranges in on the American 76s and the lone Sherman 75. It is ranged in on the second attempt. The Sherman 75 is the only one that's hit, and he makes an armor save. At the end of turn 4, the German forces are really on the back foot, having lost near a platoon of Panzer IVs. The HQ has been lost. Reinforcements have come onto the field, but they are on the opposite side of the table, so at this point it may be too little too late, with a lone Panzer III defending the objective against 5 Sherman 76s and a 75. With turn 5 on the horizon, we will see if the Americans bring in reserves and if they push further towards the objective. The bailed out M10 remounts and then passes a last stand test, so he is going to stay in the fight. The Americans then bring in another platoon of Shermans. These are 75 millimeters, and they begin moving up towards the objective. The Sherman 76s also position themselves on the hill within 4 inches of the objective. If they can just eliminate this lone Panzer III, the Germans have kind of left their objectives open, and the Americans coming in out of reserve are going to take well advantage. The Sherman 75 observer also moves up, along with the 76s. The M10 tank destroyer will move around the building to try to position a shot on the Panzer IV. The 2IC fails a cross-check, and we move to the shooting step. The Sherman 75 takes the first shot at the Panzer IV, missing with both. The Sherman 75 observer takes a shot at the Panzer III, and he will also miss both. Next, 3 Sherman 75s will take aim at Nebelwerfers, needing 7s due to cover, range, and stabilizers. Although they get 2 6s, the next rolls fail. Next, the Sherman 76s are going to unload into the Panzer III at short range. They're going to roll these dice up, obviously get a lot of hits. Some armor saves are going to be taken, although I don't even think it really matters. Some of these are coming from the side, so those are obviously some fails, firepower checks, and the Panzer III is well destroyed. Last, the M10 tank destroyer takes a shot into the lone Panzer, but misses. Moving to the Germans, last stand checks were passed, and the armored Panzer Grenadiers make their way onto the board. The platoon of Panzer IVs repositions and actually gets 1 tank to within 4 inches of the objective. The Grenadiers disembark from their transports and move up into the woods. A blitz move is passed by the lone Panzer IV, and he contests the objective in front of the 76s. He takes 2 shots in the shooting step and fails. The other Panzer IV platoon split fires, with the first going into the M10 and fails. The other 3 go into the Shermans and fail as well. The Grenadiers unload their machine guns with 12 shots. Out of those 12, they get 4 hits. There's 4 infantry saves that are taken, 2 are made. 2 go to firepower tests though because they're in foxholes, and 1 fails. At the end of the turn, the Germans have managed to get into a position where they are somewhat back in the game. They are contesting an objective on their home side of the board, also moving their Panzer IVs and infantry into position to contest an objective on the opposite side of the board. So we're going to have to see what happens with the Panzer IV up against the 75s and 76s, but there could be a bloody battle on the horizon. A last stand check by the M10 was passed, and the armored rifle platoon has decided to move out of their foxholes toward the enemy. In addition, the half-tracks are going to hop back over, with 2 getting stuck, and the Sherman 75 is going to reposition here to get some shots on the Panzer IVs. The Sherman 75s will dash up the board to attempt to hold the other objective. A blitz move by the observer is passed, and he moves into a new position. In the shooting step, the Sherman 76s are going to fire at the lone Panzer IV, getting 2 shots each. They need 5s. After 3 hits, armor saves are taken, failed, and firepower dice are rolled out. The tank is destroyed. Next, the Sherman 75 will take shots across the board at the other Panzer IV unit. After missing, the M10 will fire at the Panzer IV unit, needing 5s, and he gets a hit. And using side armor, we go straight to firepower, and it's another Panzer IV destroyed. So the Americans looking very good so far. Next up, the Sherman 75 that moved will take shots at the Panzer IV unit, but he will miss. The other one is going to spot for the artillery unit. The M7 Priest are going to lay down a bombardment. They will get ranged in on their second attempt, and every infantry stand under that barrage will be impacted here. We roll those up, and only 1 hit goes through. The German player is able to make an infantry save. Moving over, we look at the half-tracks who take 2 shots each, and they will get a hit to go through, 3 of them actually, and 1 is failed, so 1 stand will go down. Next up, the armored rifle platoon will lay out a ton of shots into the German infantry platoon. After several hits, the saves are rolled out, and only 1 additional stand fails. That German infantry platoon will be pinned, and with everything that's happened and the stands that were removed, the Americans are now out of charge range, effectively ending their turn. Moving over to the Germans, a formation last stand will be taken as 2 of the Panzer IV platoons have been eliminated. This brings our game to an end as the Germans retreat and we have an American victory. Even with passing that formation last stand, the Americans were controlling 2 objectives in the original German deployment zone, which would have made it near difficult for the Germans to recover. This was a fun game, and after reading back through the rules, we did get some things wrong. If you see any corrections that need to be made, don't hesitate to let us know in the comments below. We're not the best tactically, but I felt the Germans made a mistake by not having the 88s on the field and defending the objectives from the very beginning. It was good to have another go at Flames of War, as it's been a while since we've played this game. We look forward to bringing you some additional content in the future. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.